How's it going, guys? This is Ryo Murata, photographer based in Tokyo. This is going to be sort of like a rather unusual video because I really wanted to get this video finally edited out and back in 2020, but I procrastinated once again, and it's 2021. Yeah, Happy New Year's. It's been what, 6 months since ever since started making my YouTube channel and started making videos, but I realized that I only made 7 videos, which was not a progress for me. So to spice up my life and your life, I thought, why not make a video that kind of displays my best purchases of 2020. Although this is sort of like a film related channel, I actually didn't do many film photography related purchases this year. So hopefully in addition to that, I will sort of like talk about my sort of digital purchases that I made for my YouTube channel, and hopefully I can help some people who are thinking of making a YouTube channel. And yeah, you never know, because we're in this like crisis of being stuck home most of the time. There might be people out there who are thinking of making a YouTube channel, so hopefully I can help those people out in the long run. I've kind of broken this up into 3 parts. Part 1, we will look at the purchases I made for my film related purchases. Part 2, we'll be looking at digital related purchases that I made for my YouTube channel, and in the end I will like briefly talk about lifestyle related purchases that I made to make my life so much easier. Okay, so for part 1 of film related purchases, this is a really cheesy one. It was this like plastic case made by a Japanese manufacturer called a Nancy Case made by Meiho Japan, which is basically what I use to carry my medium format like film. And this is sort of like a small advice for me, because if you ever shoot with a 35mm like film, they're always in a canister. It's like a metal plastic. Is it plastic? Or I think it's metal, so it's like a protection layer that protects your film, but when you can hop over to medium format, there is no that protection like layer, protection like canister on a medium format. It's just the film and a wrapper, paper wrapper wrapped around. So it's like really, you have to be cautious about like how you should like carry your film, because if you put extra like pressure from the outer side, like if you press it hard, it might damage the film inside that's being rolled in that roll. So in my case, I found this on a Japanese forum, a Japanese film photographer who was using this case, and he said that this case perfectly accommodates the what I call the medium format film, the 120mm like film. Because it's like a hard case, it won't be affected by any kind of like pressure from the outer side, so it's great for like carrying around and traveling long distances. So it was like one of my best purchases of this year. So my second purchase related to my film photography channel has to be a light meter made by Sekonic. This is the LS308S, and this is sort of like the previous generation. The newer version has an X after the 308. The major difference between the S and the X is that S is like more like shutter priority, so you shutter and ISO priority, meaning that you select the ISO and shutter speed and you get the like ideal exposure for the aperture. But the X version, actually, you can choose aperture priority, so you can basically choose the aperture and the ISO, and it will show you the shutter speed. But if you're like shooting film most of the time, I realized that your ISO is already fixed because you're using just one film, and your shutter speed is mostly fixed because if you're shooting during the day, it's either going to be like 125 or 250 of a second, and you just want to know whether or not the aperture is either overexposed or underexposed. In addition to that, the X has a sort of like a glowing LED LCD screen, sort of like a smartphone, so in pitch black situations you will know what's being set on the LCD screen. The S version does not have that function, so if you're like shooting in super bright or super like dark environment, it's almost impossible to see that exposure settings. So but in compensation, like actually the Sekonic LS308S that I purchased is like roughly $100 cheaper than the X. So if you're starting out, the S might be a great purchase in my opinion. And it's like one of those things that you really need when you're shooting with a medium format camera, because 80-90% of these medium format cameras, unlike 35mm like SLRs, they do not have a light meter installed. So, and at the same time, you guys know that when shooting with a medium format camera, you only get like, for me, GW690, only you can shoot like 8 exposures. If you use a Hasselblad, that's 12 exposures, and my Mamiya 6.7, 10 exposures. So you're reducing your like shooting opportunities by 1/3, which means that your cost is actually increasing. If your cost increases, there's a higher risk. So in order to prevent that risk from happening, of getting an overexposed shot or an underexposed shot, it's good to like invest in a light meter. So that is one of the great purchases that I made in 2020. So part 2 of my purchases on digital. So in addition to like focusing on film photography, I also focus more on my YouTube channel. And as an initial investment, I think I talked about it a couple of times during my previous videos, that I purchased an action camera made by DJI. This is the DJI Osmo Action Camera. And unfortunately, I'm not sponsored by them, but this is a great camera to start a YouTube channel because it has a front screen which you can basically see what you're doing, if your like shot is well composed, you know. And I have to say that this camera has helped me pay through my career as a photographer, and it's one of those really easy to set up, easy to like manage kind of like cameras. And honestly, when I purchased this camera, it was like roughly $300, but now if you look at Amazon, it's like $199. It's like 1/3 the price of the GoPro with equivalent specs. And for a camera to start out, it is probably one of the best investments that I made over 2020. Hyperlapses that you've seen in the past are being shot by this camera. In addition to that, yeah, you're seeing my ugly face. That's also being shot on the DJI Osmo Action Camera. And for a creator, it is a great like camera to start out with. So this is quite intriguing about video, because if you're like a landscape photographer, you probably have some kind of like a graduated ND filter to sort of compensate the overexposed skies with you know, the background scene, you know. But for video, ND filter is a must, because unlike photography where you can basically casually change the, you know, the shutter speed to compensate the, if it's like really bright or really like underexposed, you know, for video your like shutter speed is already like fixed. So this like depends on what your like frames per second is, and in my case I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, and for video the optimum shutter speed would be like double that, so it's like 1/50th of a second. And imagine shooting 1/50th of a second on a bright day, you'll get a blown out shot. So in order to like compensate for that overexposure shots, that's why a lot of video shooters have 100% an ND filter. And that's another like additional like investment. So I went ahead and purchased an ND filter for my DJI Osmo Action Camera, which was quite expensive. It was like about $100. But the great thing about, I forgot to talk about it, but the DJI Osmo Action Camera compared to the GoPro, I think up until GoPro's like Hero 8, you could not remove the sort of like the lens that was attached there. The GoPro Hero 9, you can basically take off the lens and replace it with an ND filter. But what's interesting about the Osmo Action is you actually remove the lens off the camera itself and replace it with this one of those like PolarPro ND CPL filters. So depending on what scenario you're shooting, you can basically change the lens. So moving on to more digital stuff, like it's kind of funny that I made so many digital failure purchases over the years, because one of that is like microphones, because I have no like education, I don't have any background in taking audio, and my first purchase was like a Rode Video Micro microphone, which was a disaster because it could not, I mean, the sound quality was really bad, and I kind of chucked that away and replaced that with this sort of like a mic from Diety D3. Is that the name? Yeah. So this is like a non-pro version. It's roughly $100. And I actually did not know much about this brand, but a lot of YouTubers been commenting that this is equivalent to the Rode Video Mic type of like microphone. And because of the Rode Video Mic was a poor like purchase decision, I did not want to purchase another Rode mic because I thought I would do the exact same thing, mess up something. So I went ahead and bought this Diety mic, which it's actually, as you may have known, it's like a really nice like mic to like pick up audio, and I basically like by having this sort of like external like mic on top of your like camera, you can like take fresh, crisp audio. And what's interesting about this mic in particular is that you basically use a AAA battery to power it up, and it automatically syncs the audio onto your camera's like SD card, so you don't basically have to like touch the audio levels after post. But in my case, I boosted it up by a notch or maybe a little, and still I'm not getting that much of an external noise, white noise, and you guys can't probably hear the fan noise of my lights. So far it's been one of the best purchases in the digital field of 2020. Speaking of like lights, I actually made another bad decision, life decisions. I mean, my life is like filled with these like bad like purchasing decisions. I started out with fluorescent lights, LED lights, but I realized after shooting video that they do not provide enough like light to, I know it's hard to say. It's like if you don't have enough light, your like image will look grainy, everyone knows that. So I realized when shooting video, you need a light source that's large, and at the same time, the larger it gets, you need more output. So I was like searching on the like website, lots of forums, and realized that there was a person who started saying that this Godox light, the SL60W, was like the optimum, the best like light entry light for YouTube content creation, and the price wasn't that expensive. It was less than $200, including the softbox. So I gave it a go and purchased it, and I've been shooting myself for like this past 6 months, and this has been probably one of the best lights that I purchased in my life. Although the fan makes a little bit of noise, but like I said in my previous part, my mic does not pick that up, so it's a win-win situation. And it was pretty a great like investment for my channel, because who wouldn't want to see my grainy face? It doesn't make any sense. Another thing that I actually forgot to mention, which was like you need a pair of sort of like headphones to monitor your like sound, your voice, when you're editing a video. So this is actually where the headphone comes in. Obviously, because I invested heavily onto my YouTube channel, most of the camera, microphone, lighting equipment, tripods, light stands, and so forth, I forgot to like buy a decent pair of headphones. But because I use so much money, because in the upfront like cost of like investing in my channel, and also I'm burning cash on film, I realized that I need a pair of headphones because I can't hear myself. I'm not sure if the sound is being recorded properly. So this is actually one of the purchases that I really needed to do, which was like buy a pair of like headphones. And this one is actually probably by far the best selling like headphones being sold by Audio Technica. It's called the Audio Technica Street Monitoring Portable Headphones. The code name is ATHS100. I got the white version. This is the best selling headphones in Japan and Asia actually, and it's actually one of the cheapest headphones that you could get for roughly $15. It was 1,314 yen in Japan. And then in my opinion, it does the job well. I can hear myself. I mean, it's not too bassy, not too noisy, not too, one of those like Beats by Dr. Dre type of like headphones, but it's like a great headphone to like monitor the noise levels in my video to see if I'm recording it properly. And at the same time, it's good to like browse music files, browse like music on YouTube. So it was like one of the best investments that I made for my channel to edit videos. So the last part would be lifestyles. And obviously because we're like stuck mostly indoors, I'm drinking more and more coffee, and you guys know that I'm a coffee guy. But I drink coffee like in the morning from like 7 to 12, and after 12 to in the afternoon I start drinking like tea because the caffeine, you know, starts kicking in and you won't be able to sleep after like 9, 10, you know? So, but because I've been drinking so many coffee, I wanted a mug, and this is sort of like my like perspective when I view things. Like, I actually love neutral density I was about to say neutral density filters. Why do I love neutral density? I love like neutral gray colors, honestly, because it's like in the middle. It's like a happy medium of black and white. And when I look around my house, like there's a lot of like neutral gray color stuff, and the things I purchased over this year has been a lot of grays, especially this like coffee mug that I purchased from Kinto on Amazon. Kinto is a Japanese like home utensil company that makes these mugs, like plates and stuff like that, and I just love the shape and the curve design of this like mug. And yeah, when you realize at the end of the year you purchase like so many like random stuff that's like neutral gray, and it's like it makes your mind like blown up, like why did I buy this, you know? But it turns out you like neutral gray, and it was probably one of my best like purchases that I made in terms of lifestyle. Just have a mug to like, you know, drink hot coffee all day long, you know. And I also purchased a bunch of like random like cases to store my like random stuff, and yeah. Oh, that's probably going to be my future video. Hint, hint. Yeah, I obviously have to admit my best purchase would be the Fuji's GW690. I mean, if my Hasselblad didn't break down on me, I would never purchase this camera. And it opened a new window for me because it's different. Even though medium format cameras are grouped together, there's like so many differences between a 6.7, 6.6, 6.9, 6.8, you know. There's like so many formats out there, and each and every one of them have their own characteristics. And it was a great time for me to like shoot with this camera, and honestly next year will be a much better year. So happy holiday, guys. Hope you guys enjoy this video. If you have any questions, like please leave it in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. Peace.